is much talk among family business consultants and at family business conferences about the importance of creating a family council. But to many business owning families, they're a mystery and it's not quite clear what the benefits are of a family council. Today, we're going to be demystifying family councils by talking with Aimee Wrubel, who's content manager at her family's fourth generation business, Vitamix Corporation. Vitamix is a well-known business around the world, and many of us are very familiar with their products, having them right in our kitchens. She's going to share with us her experience in creating a family council, the benefits they've seen, and some practical advice. Thanks for being with me, Aimee.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, a family council is something many business owning families don't really know much about or understand. How would you describe a family council and why did your family create one?
A family council is an entity that can sit between the business and the family and facilitate communication between the two. You mentioned that we are a fourth generation company, and that's true within the ownership levels. I'm a fifth generation family member. Our sixth generation and our seventh generation already exist. So when it becomes that big of a family, it's hard to have the same message get to everyone. So this really becomes a great vehicle to make sure that everybody is getting the same type of communication within the family. And it was also important for us to find a way to come together and stay connected as a family as we grow and grow and have different levels of involvement.
I just had a question in my class for next generation students, and they actually asked me, maybe you can help answer this. So, you really hinted at how large your family is in terms of members and branches. In terms of numbers, when should a family maybe think about, oh, a family council could really help us?
Well, I really think that you should start thinking about it sooner rather than later because setting it up can be a little bit of a challenge. We started having generations where, somebody has five children and the next generation, each of those has 3 to 5 children. So it grows very quickly. So I would focus really on how the transfer of the business itself happens within the family and how people want to be involved. In our family, we have a lot of people that are at least interested in staying connected to what's happening at the business, even though they're not working there. So I would definitely recommend if you have, even 15 to 20 people in your family, it might be time to start thinking about having a unified message and coming together and forming a family council.
So, did you experience any obstacles in setting up your family council and how'd you address them?
We did, yes. We did try to set up a family council on our own about 15 or so years ago. We had a lot of trouble getting it off the ground because of some interpersonal conflicts within the family. So when we tried again about 10 years ago, this time we actually brought in a third party family business advisor. It went much smoother this time. There was still a lot of work to set up, and we had a lot of challenges in the beginning. The early work, you have to set the framework, you have to set the foundation. We were writing our charter. We were even defining things like what is family? Who is a member of the family? Things that you would think would be very obvious, but how do you treat married-ins, your spouses? How are we treating stepchildren? It really helped to have those definitions, but we had to have some healthy debate and discussion as we were setting those up. And then we had that family business advisor there to help us navigate those hard conversations. When we were getting a little too off track, they helped guide us back in the right direction. And even so, they were there at every meeting with us for the first 2 years as we developed our council. So it was very, very helpful to have somebody who had had lots of experience doing that before and working with other family businesses, but also recognize our unique circumstances that we had in our family.
Did they also help you in kind of running the first meetings or creating an agenda?
Yes, absolutely. They initially had more of a stronger arm in leading the agenda and kind of bringing in their own expertise, but then they did gradually transition and helped us learn how to fly. So I was our first secretary. So I was taking my own notes, but they were taking notes as well. We would compare after the meeting. These are the types of things you want to capture in your meeting minutes. These are the types of things that you'd want to, circulate to the family. And so, they taught us every part of that.
I love this. So, since creating your family council, how have family dynamics changed?
So communication happens much more regularly now, and we have a framework for how the family can interact with the business. So you don't have to think, oh, do I need to talk to Uncle Joe or how do I find this information out? It's a much more organized approach to where people can ask appropriate questions in appropriate places. And they are getting a regular stream of information at our regular meetings about the business. And then also, when differences of opinions arrive, we have a mechanism so everyone's voices can be heard. And that's really important to us, so much so that we actually named our family council Voice, which stands for the Vitamix Ownership Interest Council.
And from a business perspective, have you seen any benefits?
We have gotten feedback from management and the board that regular communication with Voice has been helpful for making sure that they are making decisions that align with the family's values. We have had a non family member CEO, our very first, for the last several years. So this has been helpful in that transition since we've been around for well over 100 years. It was our first non family member CEO. So being able to have that connection from the family, I think made everybody a lot more comfortable.
So, someone who really doesn't understand what you're doing, what are some of the things on a typical agenda or in the communication?
When we were first starting things up, there was a lot of creating documents and creating an organizational framework. So our meetings were a lot longer. They were 2 days long over the weekend. It was very, very in depth. Now we actually can work on projects. So we have a big focus on empowering the next generation, my generation, the fifth generation. And so we have worked on how are we going to give more opportunities to connect with the fifth generation. So we planned a fifth generation retreat, and that was the first of its kind. So that was very successful. We had that last summer. We also worked with the board and management to create a fifth generation management training program for fifth generation employees and also a board observation program. Once a year, we put on a large event for the family. And so that does take a lot of planning. So now we're focused on how we are helping the family and then also gathering voice back from the family. We do still work with the same family business advisor, and we'll bring them in for specific projects to make sure that we are still getting the pulse of how the family feels and what we need to be doing to make sure that we're still keeping everybody happy and informed.
Now, I know you're in the original house, as you mentioned. Is the council key in creating like a sort of legacy? And you can tell us where you are too.
Yes, so you might notice my background here. This is not a virtual background. I'm actually here, and that's, you see there, that's an original, real vintage Vitamix behind me. Our legacy is really very important to us, and this house that I'm sitting in is what we call the Barnard Homestead. It was a house that my great grandfather and my great grandfather built and raised their family here. I used to come to my great grandparents' house on Sundays after church, and we would have bread made in the Vitamix and applesauce made in the Vitamix and sit at this very table here and enjoy our family together. And so keeping that family legacy is very important. And that's one of the things that we like to focus on and make sure that we are doing everything we can to uphold with our voice council.
Really nice. So, for families thinking about creating a family council, what do you advise?
Know that there's going to be some work ahead of you. It can be a challenge, but it has been so rewarding on so many levels. One of my favorite things about working with our council is being able to work with family members that I wouldn't have otherwise worked with. So, cousins that maybe you see at a family reunion, but you don't see at Thanksgiving because they're from a different branch, maybe. Or maybe you do see them often, but you don't get to work with them in more of a professional sense. So I've gotten a lot closer with my cousins as we have served on different projects together. We'll have subcommittees. Maybe we're on the committee for planning our Owners Fest, which is one of the large events that we put on for the family. And that takes on additional work to plan that. And some advice that I can give to people that want to start this on their own is really consider bringing on an outside family business advisor to help you set this up. A third thing that I would actually consider is offering a stipend. This was something that we were heavily against in the beginning, and we did not do for 10 years. We were very adamant that you should want to contribute to the family and the business because of the emotional connection. It's your duty as a family member. This should definitely be voluntary. And we realized as we got many, many years under our belt that it is real work. that we're doing, and it is our time that we are contributing. And as we are asking more from our younger generation, it's harder as they're trying to build their careers and building their family to be able to take time out of that to be able to devote to something extra if it's not also helping them pay for groceries and things like that. So that's something to consider for the different circumstances in your family.
Oh, that's interesting. It sounds like once they saw all that went into the council and the work, and you do want people dedicated, that they should be rewarded. So, oh, that's very good advice. Anything else to make a council more effective?
One of the most important things about family councils is the same thing about keeping a family business in the family is that emotional buy-in. As the generations get larger and further apart, they're not seeing each other as much. Like maybe their parent didn't work there and they, weren't running around the warehouse as a kid. Give them an opportunity to bond in a non-business way. So, like I mentioned, we had our first ever fifth generation retreat, and we're all at the second cousin level. So we didn't know each other as well as previous generations knew each other because they grew up together. They had Christmases together. We didn't have that as a group. So we had to find a way to be able to come together and not have it be about governance conversations. It was about actual getting to know each other. And it was wildly successful, so much so that the group decided we don't want to do this, just once a year or once every other year. We want to have some sort of quarterly get togethers. So we're planning our first board game night. And so it's really exciting to have that outlet for just simply family bonding.
Oh, I absolutely love this. And just a final question, what age do you suggest maybe the youngest generation getting involved?
For us, we wanted to have the younger generation interested. So we have as young as 18 to be voting for the self nomination process to join Voice, our family council. But we wanted to wait until they were actually older and graduated from college to have an actual seat on the board. So be able to have some say, but not actually join the board until they had a bit more life experience. So in their early 20s. But that's a really great question. I think that can vary based on each family business, just like each family business differs in if they require you to work outside of the business before you're employed, things like that.
So thank you so much. I'm Kim Eddleston with familybusiness.org, and it's been an absolute pleasure, Aimee. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me here. It was a pleasure.